The federal government is facing new pressure to settle a class action lawsuit with black federal employees. Unions representing millions of employees say they're calling on the federal government to drop its challenge. CBC's David Thurton joins us with the details of this. So tell us more about what the unions are saying, David.
Hey, Dwight, what we saw today was a united front from some of the biggest players within Canada's labour movement. We heard from 3 labour groups, Dwight, representing more than 3 million workers. They called on the federal government to drop its challenge of the proposed black class action lawsuit. So essentially, they're calling on the federal government, Dwight, to settle it. A bit of background. The black class action lawsuit is a proposed lawsuit. It hasn't been certified yet. It was brought a couple of years ago by black employees, and what they're alleging is decades of discrimination, systemic discrimination, while working within the public service. I had a chance to speak with some of these present and former employees, and they tell me stories of racially charged workplaces, toxic workplaces in the public service. And they also talk about systemic discrimination or racism where, these black employees, they say, are, as equally qualified and with the same expertise as their white and other colleagues. Yet they haven't moved up through the ranks of the public service at the same rate. And we know that within the ranks, the executive ranks of the public service, Dwight, that, it still remains very white. So this is what the unions were speaking about today, calling on the federal government to drop its challenge of this proposed class action.
Enough is enough. Now is the time for the federal government to step up and do the right thing.
My members are tired of performative. They're tired of words. We need to have actual actions.
The federal government keeps saying it is listening and that it's making changes, but it continues to speak out of both sides of its mouth.
Dwight, a range of voices within the Canadian labour movement, you heard them there. And to be clear, the federal government does not dispute that there is anti-black racism, that there is systemic discrimination within the public service. So the unions are saying, well, if you believe this, put your mouth behind it and drop your challenge of this proposed lawsuit.
So, David, what is the federal government saying about dropping this challenge?
Well, I reached out to the federal government about 12 hours ago, and I'm yet to receive a response to my questions. But I do know from, previous communications and, conversations with Minister Lametti's office and Minister Fortier's office that essentially they are saying that black civil servants, if they have issues of racism, if they have issues of discrimination, there are avenues within the public service where they can seek redress. Things such as the union grievance process, things like the Labour Board, also the Canadian Human Rights Commission. But those unions that we heard from today at that press conference are telling me that, the grievance and Labour Board process, well, that takes years to get through. And also, they don't really address systemic, broad issues within the whole public service. It's more individual department complaints. And also when it comes to the Canadian Human Rights Commission, well, as you've seen from our reporting, that commission is embroiled in controversy. The federal government found that it has discriminated against black employees and racialized employees. Have a listen to that.
The government ruled that the Canadian Human Rights Commission was discriminating against its own black employees. Race-based complaints were being dismissed at a much higher rate than non-race-based complaints. It is now a fact that workers cannot turn to the Canadian Human Rights Commission, a commission that is plagued with discrimination, for redress.
Bottom line, Dwight, you asked for the federal government's response. It looks like they're going to litigate this to the end. They're not going to settle. They're going to challenge this in court.
CBC's David Thurton in Ottawa. Thank you, David.